Hello and welcome. The weather's starting to get really nice here in New Jersey. You know what that means? More mods. Well, this is what we've been waiting for, guys. The Injen Performance Intake for the Kia Stinger 2.5 liter turbo. Look at it. It's beautiful. Today, I'm going to show you step by step how I installed it and also what I think of it. For those that have been following me, I've had this custom Spectre setup. Just to hold me over. I knew that the car had a lot more potential. This intake unleashes that power. Let's get into it. Well, here it is. I'm going to do a little unboxing first, and then I'll try to do my best on step-by-step instructions on how to install it. Here's the intake filter. This would be the heat guard, the heat shield. Intake tubing. And then various other supplies, clamps that we'll use for the installation. For the purpose of this video, I had to actually install the stock intake back into the car just so I could start from scratch. If any of you still have your stock intake rather than the Spectre intake, this is a good guide of how to start off with installing the Injen Performance Intake. So first, what we need to do is remove the strut brace. And that's with the two bolts here. These are 13 millimeter bolts. Then we're gonna have to remove 3 bolts. These are 10 millimeter, one here, another there, and there's another there. I already took that one out. Then we'll have to remove this part here. This is a C-clip that retains the whole housing here. Once we undo that, we can pull this out, But we also have to then remove the hoses, this one, two, and then the evap lines. We're going to have to temporarily remove those because we're going to need to unscrew this bolt because we're going to reuse the evap housing that's going to get reinstalled onto the Injen intake. As you can see, I already had removed my recirculation hose that used to run from here to the stock diverter valve. That's gone, and I just capped it off here, and I will be doing the same with the Injen intake. Otherwise, for you those that have it stock still, you should have also a hose running from here to the stock diverter valve. And if you decide to keep it, you just have to loosen up the clamp and remove that hose, and then you're just gonna have to reinstall it back to the Injen intake housing. All right, let's get started. So this is where the recirculating hose belonged, and I removed the hose, and this is where I capped it on the stock intake housing. And now it's firmly secure on the new intake housing. Next step that we need to do is remove the C-clip from the stock housing so that we could put it on the Injen turbo adapter. Now that we have the C-clip installed on the Injen adapter, next thing we need to do is remove the O-ring right there from the stock one and then install it on the new adapter. We have to make sure that we have to remember the positioning of the O-ring, the way it's installed on the stock, so that it's the same on the adapter. and that's supposed to be the finished result. Now this is the engine bay once the stock intake housing has been removed. Hose is disconnected. Here's a turbo inlet. Check inside. This section right here I had removed when I had the Spectre intake on here, because it had a 45-degree angle. This was blocking the filter, so I had to remove it so that it fit nicely in here. But now with the new intake, I reinstalled it. All it is just 2 bolts, one there and the other one underneath. Now we'll assemble the new intake. I'm going to now install the inlet adapter with the C-clip already on there and the O-ring. This should just pop right in. You're going to hear a snap, and that's now firmly secured on there. We're going to remove the evap adapter from the stock housing because we're going to reuse this on the new housing, and also the O-ring that belongs to it. The evap adapter that we just took off now gets installed here. Make sure the O-ring is on, and then just slide it in. Then they want you to use their screw. It's an M6 to tighten it up. Next, we're going to install the rubber adapter into the inlet. We're going to install the heat shield now, but before we do that, we need to install these vibration mounts. These will sit in the original locations where the bolts were for the stock housing, but there is one special one of these that will replace a nut on the bottom, which I'll show you now. So this nut here needs to be removed so that we can replace it with this special vibration mount right here. This will screw on to the already threaded part here, the blue threaded, and then the heat shield will sit on top of here. This is 10 millimeter. And now we'll just screw in this. All right. Now let's install the other 2 mounts. And we're ready to install the heat shield now. Tighten everything up with the washer and nut. We'll install next the provided stripping. So there are a few sizes here. These are practically the same. But then there's a longer piece right here. This piece here goes in this section, in the O part, while the other two gets fitted on top here. This is what the finished result looks like of the heat shield with the stripping. Now we're ready to install the engine tube to the housing. Now we'll tighten up the clamps and install all the hoses. Lastly, we'll install the filter itself. And now we'll tidy up everything. So what do I think of it? It looks really good. Great quality materials. And the heat shield, that's an added bonus right there. I like this setup the way it is because it allows for max air suction and flow. You not only hear the difference, but you feel it as well. Comparing this to the stock intake, it is a very big improvement. Besides it sounding nice, you can feel the added horsepower. On paper, it's supposed to give you around 18 horses. But what I feel most on this is the torque. I get up to speeds much quicker. And it's not the placebo effect. There really is a difference. What about comparing this to the custom Spectre intake that I had? Even with that, there's a significant difference. Yes, the Spectre filter was able to suck in more air than stock, but the weak point would be the soft tubing here. As air gets sucked in, the stock tubing here would collapse in itself, restricting max airflow. But not with the Injen intake. This has a better filter, and the rigid tubing gets that job done to give you that extra performance. Even the sound in this intake is better than the Spectre. Now, in order for you to properly enjoy this extra performance, you really need some kind of tune. The tune will tell the engine to suck in more air and how to use it. A JB4 will help with that. It has various engine maps that are calibrated for compensation. Without a tune, the intake is more for sound. A second thing you should do is to add intake snorkels. This will allow to funnel air directly onto the intake filter. I mentioned this in the other video that this side will just blow air right into the engine bay. There's no other filter on this side like the 3.3 turbos have. But anything to get the engine cooler. If you're not ready for this setup yet, or just want to save money, you can still opt for the custom Spectre intake setup there. I'll post that video link on top of this video. But if you really want that full performance out of your intake, this is a must. Stay tuned to the channel. There's other projects I have lined up, some stuff that I want to try and do. And as always, thanks for watching.